beloved country called Kenya. Of course, the new constitution, even as we're celebrating its 3rd anniversary, we look at it, it has a great deal of gains stipulated in it. But then when you look at the recently concluded elections, you wonder, what is happening? Because we didn't have any governor, any senator elected as a woman elected as governor or senator. But when you focus away from politics, you see how powerful women have stood their ground. And we're going to look at women in leadership, and we're going to look at that from the perspective of this powerful woman, a woman of honor indeed. She's Betty Gikonyo, who is also a co-founder of the Karen Hospital, a leading pediatric cardiologist. She has served on both the Nairobi Health Management Board and on the University of Nairobi Council. She was decorated in the Order of Silver Star by former President Moi, and the Moran of the Burning Spear by former President Mwai Kibaki. Amazing. Welcome to the Power Breakfast Show.
Thank you.
And then, of course, your autobiography, The Girl Who Dared to Dream.
Yes.
Let's begin from the very start, the place of womanhood in any society. What is your perspective of that, on that?
Thank you very much. You said the state of womanhood in any society. I sincerely believe that as women, we have a very important role to play in any society. We are the nurturers. We nurture you, from my mother-in-law says, long before anybody sees you, we are carrying you around,
Exactly.
And feeding you. Mm-hmm. And finally, as God has, allowed us, to nurture that little one, from the beginning, up to a time when now we say, mother, your child, now you can go and be on your own. So from a family perspective, we are nurturers, and we are the one who really make the leaders. And it's then surprising that those of us who make the leaders, do not end up being in the leadership position. Mm-hmm. So we are mentors, for, as I say, for our, not only for our children, but for for our nieces, our nephews. As we grow older, we are mentors in our workplace, and we have opportunities in all around us, to actually, play a very significant role, in the society. And we're already doing that at family level. We are doing it at the professions, and if you look around, even in the professions, look at medicine, where I am a doctor. When I entered medical school, we were about 6 girls in a class of 80. When you look at it now, how many years later, some 30 years or more later, half of the class are girls. So we are making gains. In the School of Law, similarly, if you go, you'll find that the numbers and the proportions have increased significantly. At the university where I'm a member of council, in the postgraduate programs, especially the parallel programs, it is the women who are 60%, of the class. So yes, we have made great gains as women, but I think the still question begs the answer: why is it that we are not so visible in the political leadership? We are not so visible, in public, offices.
Because, that's really the big concern. I read your autobiography, the things that you've done. You stand as a powerful figure, a woman figure. But when it comes to politics, people seem to sort of shy away, and they would rather give you a women representative post, but not even a president for that matter.
Yeah.
Why do you think that's so?
Well, I think everybody also has their dream of what they want to be. I never aspired to be a politician. My dream, which I dreamt as a young girl, was to be a doctor, and I worked towards it, from primary school through high school, and through to University of Nairobi, where I trained as a doctor. So my aspiration and what I dreamt and what I wanted to be was a doctor. So I think everybody has also a dream and an aspiration. Is that what pushes you? As I put in my book, we all have different internal drums, the drums that you hear, and that's the drum that I would say ensures that the path that you follow and the speed with which you also go, and the people who walk along with you are going to be in tune with that internal drum that I would say is calling calling each of us to our own different destination. So I think some of us are called to be, professional women. Others are called to be politicians. Others are called even to be mothers. Others to be farmers. But I still think there is a discrepancy and not a fair playing ground when it comes to women getting into leadership. And in a forum I was recently, the question is, where do we present ourselves, our CVs, so that they can be seen? Because we do have strong CVs as women. There are women who want to be leaders, and yet they don't get there. And I think one of the I would advise is that start early. If you really want to go into politics, then that is a drum that is, that's beckoning you. That's then do something about it. Register to be a member of a party. You're not going to end up, going to parliament if you are not even registered, to be a member. Not just a voter, but a member of a party. You're not going to find yourself being nominated to be a candidate, for the elections unless you start at the grassroots and move yourself up. So basically the message is prepare yourself for what you want to be. And also the other thing I think is very important is expose yourself to the people who make the decision. That when I say expose is attend forums, be where the action is, and then when the time comes, for selection, then you be there. When I was elected to be a council member at University of Nairobi, some almost 15 years ago, I believe it's because I was working a lot with the Heart to Heart Foundation. I was out there. Somebody knew there was a Dr. Betty Gikonyo, who is interested in charity and who is interested in helping the less fortunate. So that exposure, obviously brings you a bit to the limelight. The same thing is that we cannot sit, in our kitchens and sit, in small, in places where nobody notices you. So you must also present yourself. But above all, you must prepare yourself. Preparation for the job that you want to be. I'll just always take an example of a doctor. Prepare. You want to be a doctor, you have to do science subjects. You want to, to be very good, and compete with the boys in that mathematics, that chemistry, biology. So you prepare yourself from as early as, as primary school, as early as high school. Only then will you actually be able to end up being a doctor. So preparing yourself, through the journey, and it has been a journey of preparation from class 1, through high school, through university. And even after I became a doctor, I wanted to be again, the dreams they keep on evolving. You wanted to be a specialist children's doctor, which again, you go back to school and then nobody's going to give it to you on a silver platter. When I became a cardiologist, when I traveled to the US, again, a more for more study. I think I've spent a lot of my time studying, but it's because there was something I was pursuing. There's something that pushes you, that tells you time is of essence. However, you cannot contract time. You have to walk, the journey until the destination. So for women, my fellow women, those who want to go into leadership, and who want to go into politics, then prepare yourself. You want to be in the executive, cabinet secretary, then you need to be where, the selections are. But I still believe that you as our, I would say fellow men, I think there's still something that you kind of shortchange us. Yeah. Even when we have all the CVs, even when we present ourselves in the right place, it seems like we have not yet evolved to the point where because I think it's whereas the woman has to prepare herself, the woman has to be confident, the woman has to, to have what it takes, to go into leadership. It's still not a fair playing ground. And I think that's why the Constitution says, now had to bring it to us and say affirmative action. Let us have, 1/3, and I always say it's not 1/3 of women. It says 1/3 of each gender. So the 2/3 could be women, and the 1/3 men. That's the constitutional, so that when we are like now constituted here, 2 men and one lady, there should be 2 ladies here and 1 man. That is still constitutional, and that's the way we should be pushing it to see to the position where we are not just 1/3 of every constituted gathering or constituted appointment, but we actually should be aiming to be 2/3. Then when we push that hard, then the men will start to see us. but now we are being selected. And I believe it's a process. I don't want to say that we have not made gains as women. We have made gains, but we could do much better.
For the audience, the viewers who might want to buy this book, The Girl Who Dared to Dream, can you, in a nutshell, tell us why did you choose to write the book?
Yes, I chose to write a book, thank you very much, way back in 2002. So it's been a work in progress, because as I did everything else I was doing, I was scribbling down, something. But why did I choose to write the book? I would say so long ago, it's almost 10 years ago, I was sitting in my practice, and as a private practitioner, and I said, there's this journey that I've traveled. There's a girl, a boy out there in the village who is wondering, how did Dr. Betty Gikonyo become a doctor? So my story and my dream really was not about building hospitals, not being in councils. My dream was to be a doctor. So I was writing a motivational book. I was writing a book to encourage that boy or girl, that man or woman who has a dream, because it's not only children who have dreams. Grown-ups also have dreams. And I want to encourage them that that dream that you have, nurture it, work on it, open your eyes, because you really can't go on sleeping and enjoying the sleep. You have to wake up, work on what you need to do to achieve the dream. So apart from being a motivational book, I wanted also to let my audience understand that there are ups and downs. There are times that when things are going very well for you, like passing exams, going to Alliance Girls High School, going to University of Nairobi. But the journey is not always smooth. There'll be valleys and there'll be hills. There'll be times when you feel, God, really, are you really preparing me for this? Or why are things going so wrong? Some of the things I've been able to, to point out is the fact that I lost my mother when I was 14 years old. And I want, that boy or girl who may lose a parent not to feel like that is the end. I was taken in by my brother, who, again appreciating our relatives and saying that when they are there, or each one of us, have an opportunity to help somebody else to come and, on board. So I also wanted to tell them, bring about family. I also wanted to bring the issue that a woman can be both a professional, a mother, a wife, the philanthropist that I am, work in the board, and fulfill all those, because God has given us, you may not believe it, but God has given us some special, attributes as women, ability to do very many things simultaneously and achieve all of them. So I want the myth that a woman who is a professional is not a wife, a woman who is a professional is not a mother, a woman who is a professional is not somebody who goes back to the village, to work, with the villagers. I wanted to bring the whole gamut of human experiences on, to bear. But I also wanted to, as long as you read my book, to not forget that it's one, deity called God. God is innate in everything that you do, and when He predestined you to be something, He will make it happen. And bring it together. One quotation that comes out very clearly in the book is that of the alchemist, and this other lady, the lady who has also written the book Secret. I'm an avid reader, and one of the things that comes out is that when you want something really great, nature will connive to give it to you.
Wow. According to you, I haven't finished the book, we just got it yesterday. What are your most, if you can remember, the lowest point in your apart from the death of your mother in your life?
Yeah, well, I have
the ones who have succumbed, but the ones that have not succumbed, you yes. defeated.
Yes, well, I think apart from the death of my mother, when I was young, I think the other very low, and I've put it there, is that even in university, as you're doing I was doing my thesis. And I was made to do it all over again because, it did not pass, the requirements, at that time. And my having to work overnight for 3 months in a library, to make sure that I do complete my thesis, I brought it there.
For the PhD?
That's for my PhD. Yes. So that was one low moment. The other low moment is as a teenager, and I again brought the whole. I want to break the myth that I'm been a perfect person. That I have lived the life of any other teenager, and I brought up the fact that when I was a teenager, I didn't behave always as nicely as I should have behaved. And at one point, I was sent away from home, and found myself living in a not such a nice address, because my sister used to live at Kamete Prison. She worked there as a chief nurse. And you can imagine a 19-year-old, knocking at committee gate to say, I'm coming here. You ask what for? My sister lives here. And then you enter university, and your people asking, where do you go for weekends? Clearly you don't want to. That's not the address you want to give. And as if that was not enough, she was posted to Langata Women's Hospital, prison, which made it even worse. And finally, by the time I was finishing university, she was at the Kabete juvenile, remand home. So my address wasn't very, very appealing. So that bit, but as a consequence, again, I wanted to be very clear. Actions have consequences. You disobey, then you should be punished. My punishment can be a little or it can be a lot, but it's the lessons that you learn from that is most important. Again, but I brought also a very low moment when I had my third child, who was born with a birth defect. I was a doctor. I was already a pediatrician. I was training to be a pediatrician. So again, I had to interrupt my medical studies and travel with my sick baby to London. Luckily, again, friends, Dr. Frank Jenga and his wife were there. God had prepared nature connives to get people to be where they should be, to help you, and I wanted people to know that I also have had a chance to do a harambe, for a sick child. So I have another low moment when I couldn't pay rent, and I've been able to put that, how, at Dagoret Corner, that was my residence, if you like to know, and I wasn't able to raise the 600 bob, or me and my husband, and the journey had to walk to Nyeri.
Why could you not?
Because, we were not doctors, really, because, we were final year medical students. We got married when we were final year medical students, and we were depending on boom. Those of you at the university know that the money that you are given, and if you are non-residential students, that 800 bob is the one that you are supposed to live on and pay rent. And for some reason, the university, when the students went on strike, and therefore the boom was cut. So what does that mean? It means that your livelihood, and your rent, and your and your landlord, and I've really narrated how he would not take 590 shillings short of the 10 bob to make people understand. We have come and we have walked these paths. Nothing is new. The Bible says there is nothing new under the sun. Everything has been seen and has been done. I have seen it all, and I stand here to say that is not the what I should dwell on. What I should dwell on is what are the lessons that I've learned there. The lessons that we learn from each experience. But it also helps us deal with other people. When an employee of mine comes and says, Daktari, my rent has not been paid, You can relate to that. Absolutely. I'm staying with a relative and it's not very comfortable. I can relate to that. I've walked to take a matatu to Nyeri, as I said, to go look for the 600 bob for my mother-in-law, who was very gracious. Again, I have done that. So for me, my life is complete, and I complete in the sense that I have experiences. I've had all the experiences that God has placed upon me to teach me a lesson, make me a stronger person, and be able to serve other people more effectively. Right.
There's an instance you actually note in your autobiography. When you were 7 years, you shared your dream of becoming a doctor to your Standard 1 teacher.
Yes.
And you stayed true to that.
Yes, yeah.
And I'm looking at many people who perhaps have this dream,
yes,
but because they have been raised up in a slum, yes, they have this syndrome I call not for me syndrome.
Yes.
The greatest person they've seen around is perhaps a tailor, not a doctor.
Yes.
So when you tell them you can be a doctor, it's absolutely, that's not for me.
Exactly.
What's your message to such people?
The message is, all around us, there are still role models. My role model, why did I even think of being a doctor? As I say, growing up in the village, drawing water from the river and carrying heavy, loads of firewood on my back. The best person, the person I had seen highest was my teacher, and of course there was a nurse, who used to work in the mission hospital. But for me, there was a character that my mother kept on referring to, and that was my older brother. My older brother we have an age difference of over 20 years. So I never really saw him as I grew up because he was somewhere called Makerere. And my mother used to talk about her son who is trained to be a doctor. And for me, it was like a fairy story. I would like to be that character in that fairy story. So at that point, I really didn't understand what it was to be a doctor, but I knew I wanted to be like that person that my mother talks so fondly about. That place, ultimate place called Makerere, is where I want to go. Makerere meant university at the time because there are no other university. So what I would like to tell the boy and girl in the slum, the boy and girl, I have received a lot of tweets, some boy from Turkana who says, I would like to start a library for my community, but it's still a dream. Another one says somewhere in Shimolatewa, I want to be a doctor. How can I be? The message to all of them is that the dream evolves and you also work towards it. So I would like to encourage them and tell them, you can be. Work on it. And each day as you wake up, remember to focus. Focus there, on the dream, not just the dream, but the outcome. Keep your eyes focused. And even as life turns is difficult and you have high and low moments, even as the journey seems to be long, even as the people you are working with, some tend to go their own ways because they are not part of your dream. Work hard, continue, and keep on looking for role models. And I like that communication that they have, with me now. That I can, I can encourage them. I can tell them I can help them, walk the journey. So I think there should be no limitation as to what somebody can be. But you also dream with, you as I said, the dream evolves. Doctor was such a big thing at that time, and it's the only thing that I could think about. But after I became a doctor, then there were other, it's like you climb one hill and gives you a vantage point to be able to see further. And as soon as you hit that other peak, you don't look back and say, oh, you people, what are you doing still not climbing? You look ahead and keep on trusting God that what he has put in you, he will make sure that it is accomplished in the end.
Can you tell us about your philanthropic work and the Heart to Heart Foundation and how it started?
The Heart to Heart Foundation is a very good story, and I have narrated it very clearly. It started again as a seed that was you sow a seed. As we traveled with my husband and 2 children to go to the States, and there was this young boy called Samuel Rapketa who was very sick. And this boy, we were traveling, and the late Professor Ojiabo had this boy, who was sick, who he had been able to work to ask for assistance in the States. So what happens, in short, is that we end up traveling with him. Samuel was 18 years, but he was the same size as my 8-year-old. We had 3 children we were traveling with. And then he gets sick as we fly. Because, and he gets so sick that we had to start doing first aid or beyond first aid. We thought we might lose him. We ended up with him, in Brussels, where we had to spend a night, and because he's so sick and we are going to pharmacies trying to get medicine in French, and you don't, you can't communicate, but by grace of God, they were able to give us the medicine. The long and short of it is that we ended up with Samuel in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He was being sponsored by the same charity also we were sponsored by a charity. So maybe that's also, you can see the connection, called the Children Heart Link. So he ends up staying with us for a year, and because he was not able to travel after the surgery. And that now I would say that's where the seed of charity started. How can we also, these people have helped us to go and study. Mm-hmm. How can we give back? And we came back with this idea of starting a charitable organization that would help specifically children with heart problems, specifically from poor families who could not afford this surgery. My husband and I, Dan, had come up with the expertise, the equipment. So the only thing we needed was to get the people who needed the service. And the Children Heart, we actually started in 1993, so we are celebrating 20 years of the Heart to Heart Foundation. A lot of children...
It still existing?
It's still existing, and it's still working it's still going strong. We have the advantage now that we have a hospital, so that those who need surgery, we can treat them, in our hospital, at the current hospital. We also do programs in the community where we educate, because education is vital to prevent heart diseases, because a lot of these children, just like Samuel, had a preventable heart problem. If only the parents had taken him to a health center for treatment of a sore throat. If only the people at the health center had given the injection penicillin to prevent the sore throat or to treat the sore throat, that bag would not have gone to the heart and he would have been. So there's also that bit of prevention, better than cure, but also add cheaper than cure.
Now, looking at the place of women in society,
Yes.
the latest case
Yes.
where we've seen tables being turned
Yes.
is the case that happened in Mombasa,
Yes.
whereby two gentlemen decided to have this relationship with one woman. I
Yes.
mean, for a very long time we're used to a man being married to many women,
Yes.
but then this particular one, a woman choosing to live with many men. From your perspective, is that some sort of the degradation of womanhood, or what is your perspective of that?
I think every time we look at something like that, I think we should look at the entire society, because people are not, they live in a society. There's nobody who lives in an island where nothing else is happening. So I think what we are seeing, that plus what we also saw same again in the coast, and I'm sure it's happening elsewhere, where women were locked up in a place where they were having a natural relationship with animals. I think it's just a pointer to how, not just I would say how society has degenerated. It is these people are coming from our environment. These people are coming and are listening to us, and it's the messages that we are giving to the child as he's growing up, to the student as they go to school, to the young women and young men as they're in university. This idea of that our moral fiber is really the one that we should be looking at and say what has happened. And for me, I always go back to the home. The beginning is at the home. That is where the learning, the teaching, starts. And if that goes wrong, and basically for me, I'm also saying there's also a breakdown in our family, and our family, structures that now stopping that we as parents are not taking our responsibility. If women to the girls, you men to the boys, to make sure that as they grow up, they understand who they are. You inculcate values in them that even when they get out into the world, they are not going to be shaken. They'll be like that tree that is planted by the river, with water, not in a desert. So whatever it is that you are seeing is a reflection of a society whose moral values have degenerated, whose moral values, need to be, we do need to do something about it. And it is not that lady, I would say, we don't want to be the first one to throw the stone. We just should say, where has she come from and what have we played? What role, even in the media, what role have we played in sometimes propagating, this, behavior? Because when you watch even the TV, you listen to radio, what is coming out? What good advice is really coming out to advise our youth? But having said that, I don't want to put it all on media. I go back to the family. Where that's the root. Mm-hmm. That's where we really need to. We cannot maybe change the ones who are in their 20s and 30s, but that's not to say we give up on them. Mm-hmm. But the little ones who are growing now, what can we do? And I think you now, I'll throw the ball to you, that I'm a grandmother now. I have to take care of the grandchildren and tell them, give them the message that I was given by my mother. But you have to really take care, especially the boy child who seems now like is an endangered species. True. Because people are concentrated so much on the girl child that they have forgotten there is a boy there who is going to be the father, of those children. Absolutely.
Looking at the trend, even as we wind up, do you have a dream of perhaps one day this country being led by a woman?
Oh yes, I have no doubt. I have no doubt that it's just a question of time. Times have changed, and even the attitudes of the, because it's the electorate that needs to change. It's not just the women, the electorate. And I think you, the younger generation, are more open, to new ideas. You have been exposed to women who are able, working alongside with you, and who you can also give a vote to. I think for me it's it's a kind of evolution in the thinking of both the men and the women, but that will be led by education, that is be led by exposure, and at the end of it all, I believe reason will prevail, and I do see a future, and I see a Kenya that will have one day have a woman president, and have more women, in positions of power.
Tell us briefly before we close about Karen Hospital, the history of it, how it started and how it is doing now, as of now, its performance as a hospital.
Thank you so much.
In comparison to others.
Yeah, Karen Hospital, again, is a dream of 20 years. By the time we opened it in 2006, we're in our 8th year. It was a dream that my husband, Dan, and I had, again, when we were in America. And we saw all these good facilities that are there. And we said, can we also take this to our people? The longest journey that, again, we traveled, 20 years, trying to convince banks, trying to convince other doctors to come on board, business people. And if you read the book, you'll see it's just like the story, of the man who made a feast and called, his friends to come. And they didn't turn up. One said, I have a new wife. Another one had bought land. Another one was going to bury somebody. But the point is, they all had excuses as to why they would not come on board. It was a long journey, but finally, Kenya Commercial Bank believed in us. They gave us a loan. Thank you to the local banks. And Karen Hospital, in its 6th year, employs 400 people. We have 6 branches, one in Nakuru, one in Meru, Nyeri, Karatina. We're just opening one in Kitegela and one in Gong. And we are now, the newest dream for Dr. Betty Gikonyo is a medical training school. Wow. And we already have launched the Betty Gikonyo School of Nursing. So I would say it is doing well.
Karen Hospital?
It's going to be at Karen Hospital, and it's opening next month. We already got everything going. The point, again, here is, as if one dream comes to an end, another one. God plants another one. But to answer your question, the hospital is doing well. But when I say well, I have to look at 3 sides. Is it an employer? It's an employer with 400 people, feeding 400 families. Is it propagating good health care? It is doing that. And is it a good business? Yes, a good business, because we need to pay tax. Karen Hospital is one of the, I say one, and I need to be challenged of its caliber of the 5 big hospitals, is the only one that is based on for-profit. For-profit means we are a corporate body that pays taxes and that does not hide behind not-for-profit, charitable, a foundation, because we really believe that the future of this country is entrepreneurship.
Wow, powerful indeed, powerful indeed. One thing that really stood out, of course, a lot of things stood out, the place of there's an internal drum. That dream, pursue it, and you've got to start early, and dreams evolve, so you need to work on that. Expose yourself to where the action is. Wow, talking to Dr. Betty Gikonyo, amazing indeed. She's the girl who dared to dream. Many thanks to indeed. We'll be right back.